London does not look like a planned city. From above, it has no grand axis, no commanding grid, no single organizing idea you can point to and say, that is where it all began. Instead, it bends, it folds, it hides fragments of Roman wall beside post-war concrete. It lets a Baroque cathedral sit at the center of a financial district. It runs medieval lanes into the shadow of glass towers. At first glance, London looks like chaos. But none of this is accidental. London simply never learned how to throw its past away. Every bend in the street pattern has a reason. Every awkward junction has a history. Every collision between old stone and new glass is a negotiation between what someone wanted to build and what was already standing there. So the real question is not, how did London change? The real question is how 500 years of fire, ambition, war, money, and engineering produced a city that kept changing, without ever losing the shape of its old self. That is what this video will answer. To understand London, we have to go beneath the skyline. Beneath the streets. Beneath the idea of modern London itself. Because the first secret of London design is this. Before London became a capital of brick, stone, steel, and glass, it became a crossing. Long before the skyline, the Thames built the city. The river created movement, trade, defense, danger, opportunity. The Romans saw this, and in the 1st century they turned the place into Londinium, a town positioned where roads, ships, and a bridge could connect Britain to the wider Roman world. From the beginning, London was not just a place, it was a hinge, and it grew the way hinges do, not from one perfect center outward, but from many points of power pulling toward one another. The mercantile city held money, guilds, markets, and civic government. Westminster held monarchy, parliament, and ceremony. Between them stretched river landings, religious houses, aristocratic residences, markets, theaters, and roads. London was never a single circle expanding from one core. It was a chain of powerful places, slowly growing into one another. That is why London still feels polycentric today. The original Roman city left more than ruins. It created a habit. London would grow around access. Access produced wealth, and wealth produced buildings. A defensive wall later wrapped around the settlement and gave the old city a hard edge. Inside that boundary, streets tightened, trade intensified, land became valuable. Medieval towers and guild halls rose above a dense commercial fabric. Timber houses leaned over streets so narrow they could almost touch across the air. When buildings are that close, fire becomes an urban force. So by the early modern period, London was already a layered city. Roman foundations, medieval lanes, river trade, church towers, guild halls, and a street pattern more inherited than designed. Then, in 1666, London was given the rarest thing a city can receive. A chance to start again. The Great Fire began in Pudding Lane on the 2nd of September and burned for 4 days. It destroyed more than 13,000 houses, 87 churches, the Royal Exchange, the Guildhall, and Old St. Paul's Cathedral. When the fire was over, 4/5 of the city had been scorched, and from that, ash came a dream. Not one dream, several. Christopher Wren imagined a new London. John Evelyn imagined another. Both wanted something more rational, more ordered, more monumental. Wide streets, open squares. Ceremonial views. A city legible from the air. If either plan had been fully built, London today might feel like a Baroque capital. Composed, commanding, organized around the vision of a designer. But the plans failed. Not because they lacked imagination, because London was already owned. Every parcel in the burned city had a name attached to it. A landlord, a tenant, a subtenant, a guild with a claim, a church with a deed, a business that needed to reopen, a family that needed shelter. The fire had destroyed buildings. It had not destroyed ownership. And that mattered more than the drawings. No one had the authority, the money, or the time to wipe away every claim and begin again. Commerce had to restart. Shelter had to be built before winter. So London rebuilt on its old street lines. The same lanes, the same irregular parcels, the same medieval tangle. Now in brick and stone instead of timber and plaster. That is the first revelation. The Great Fire changed London's architecture. But it did not change London's map. Wren got his cathedral. He also rebuilt dozens of city churches. But the streets that ran between them continued to follow the inherited pattern. The new architecture could be Baroque. The urbanism underneath it remained medieval. That is why the City of London still feels compressed beneath the modern financial district. Walk near Cheapside, Cornhill, Bank, or the lanes around St. Paul's, and the glass buildings are not sitting on a neutral grid. They are squeezed into old parcels. They bend around old routes. They rise from a ground plan that catastrophe failed to erase. In London, change often happens vertically or underground. The horizontal plan resists almost everything. By the early 18th century, a different London was forming beyond the old city. The old core was dense and commercial. Westminster was ceremonial and political. And between them, and beyond them, large estates began to shape the westward city. Bloomsbury to the north, Mayfair to the west, Marylebone beyond that, Belgravia to the southwest. These places were not simply empty fields waiting for a city. They were privately controlled estates, held by aristocratic families and institutions who understood something important. Coherent design could increase the value of land. This is where London learned a different kind of order. Not the emergency order of rebuilding after fire, not the ceremonial order of a royal avenue, but the negotiated order of the lease. Landowners developed whole districts through building agreements, repeated facades, controlled materials, and long-term estate management. The result was one of London's most influential urban forms, the Georgian Square, a rectangle of garden enclosed by railings, surrounded by terraces that appear almost as one architectural composition. The square was more than a garden surrounded by houses. It was a social machine. It created calm inside density. It gave residents light, air, prestige, and separation. It made urban life feel controlled. The power was not in a single palace. It was in repetition. In Bloomsbury, the Bedford estate used squares and terraces to create coherence. In Mayfair and Belgravia, Grosvenor shaped whole districts through the same logic. In Marylebone, the Portman estate turned land into streets, squares, leases, and architectural control. The Georgian Square changed the emotional experience of the city. Behind the uniform facades, people could live with privacy and rank. In front of them, the street became a display of discipline. In the center, the garden offered controlled nature. Not countryside, but a private green room inside the metropolis. This was design as social choreography. The square told you where to walk, what to see, who belonged, and how the city should feel. It gave London calm, but it also gave London boundaries. That is the second revelation. London's elegance was not commanded from above. It was contracted into existence, one lease at a time. And that logic has not disappeared. Stand today near Baker Street and George Street in Marylebone, and the old estate system is still visible in modern form. The Portman estate, which manages about 110 acres of Marylebone, is still shaping development through long-term ownership and design control. At the 19 to 35 Baker Street and 100 George Street project, the same basic pattern continues. Landowner, developer, architect, street, courtyard, lease, value. The materials are new. The offices are new. The apartments are new. But the logic is old. The landowner sets the character. The developer builds within it. The street holds its identity because coherence has economic power. 500 years of London design are still being written in the language of land. But by the middle of the 19th century, London was in serious trouble. Not aesthetic trouble, functional trouble. The population had surged. Streets were overwhelmed. Movement was difficult. Smoke darkened the air. And the Thames, which had once been London's great artery, had become something else. A drain. Waste poured into the river. Cholera haunted the city. In the hot summer of 1858, the smell rising from the Thames became impossible to ignore. Parliament sat beside the river, and even power could no longer pretend the problem was somewhere else. That summer became known as the Great Stink. London had to answer it. But the surface city was too old, too dense, and too owned to fix simply by drawing wider streets. So London did what it often does when the horizontal plan refuses to move. It went down. Joseph Bazalgette designed a network of intercepting sewers that caught waste before it entered the Thames and carried it eastward. The embankments were not just riverfront improvements. They housed infrastructure. They reclaimed land. They created new roads and promenades. In London, even beauty could be built over a sewer. A few years earlier, London had made the same decision in transport. In 1863, the Metropolitan Railway opened as the world's first underground railway. The streets above were too congested to solve the problem at street level, so London built a second city beneath them. This is where Victorian London becomes essential to the story. The 19th century city did not choose one architectural language. It used different languages for different kinds of power. Iron and glass made new spans possible. Brick became heroic in the hands of engineers. Gothic revival turned morality into pointed arches and carved detail. Classical facades still communicated institutional authority. A railway station could feel like an industrial cathedral. A museum could feel like a temple of knowledge. A pumping station could be decorated almost like a palace for machinery. Victorian London transformed infrastructure into public drama. And this habit did not end with the Victorians. In the 21st century, London built the Thames Tideway Tunnel, a new super sewer beneath the river, for the same basic reason Bazalgette had faced. The old system could not keep untreated overflow out of the Thames during heavy rain. The technology changed. The scale changed. But the design instinct remained familiar. When the visible city is too crowded and too valuable to remake, London hides the solution below the surface. This is one of the deepest continuities in London design. The city rarely solves pressure by wiping the slate clean. It solves pressure by adding another layer, another pipe, another tunnel, another rail line, another bridge, another planning rule, another compromise under the pavement. That is the third revelation. Victorian London did not make the city simpler. It made it deeper. The true city now existed in layers. Above, monuments and stations. Below, tunnels and pipes. Along the river, embankments. Behind the stations, railway lands. Under the streets, sewers. Over the rooftops, smoke, spires, and the dome of St. Paul's. This is why London is difficult to explain through a single style label. It is not simply medieval, Georgian, Victorian, modern, or global. Each label is true only for a layer. The real design of London is the relationship between those layers, where one survives, where another interrupts it, and where a new system quietly carries the weight that the visible streets can no longer handle. By 1900, London had become an urban puzzle. Old streets, Georgian squares, Victorian infrastructure, imperial institutions, working docks, railway suburbs, and a skyline still haunted by church towers. Then the 20th century brought a force none of the previous centuries had used in the same way. Destruction from the air. During the Blitz, bombing damaged and destroyed large parts of London. The East End, the docks, the city. Entire streets were reduced across districts that had been dense and functioning only days before. And once again, London faced the question it had faced after the Great Fire. Should destruction become the opportunity for total redesign? The answer, again, was complicated. Post-war planners believed a healthier, more rational city was possible. Modernism offered the tools: concrete, towers, open decks, separated pedestrian routes, and a genuine faith that architecture could help solve social problems if given enough room. In some places, the results were powerful. The Barbican, rising from a bomb-damaged area of the city, became one of London's most distinct urban forms. Towers, walkways, water, gardens, a concert hall, a self-contained concrete world built from the ruins of Cripplegate. But post-war London could not start from zero. The Wren churches were still there. The Georgian terraces were still there. The Victorian stations were still there. The medieval lanes had survived fire, bombs, and progress. Modernism had to sit beside all of them. The tension between those layers never fully resolved. It is still unresolved today. Then Canary Wharf changed the conversation. Beginning in the late 20th century, the former docklands gave London something unusual: a large district where modern finance could be composed on a more open site. Bigger blocks, wider spaces, a clearer tower profile, a skyline rising from ground that the old port economy had vacated. That contrast matters. The old city shows what happens when global finance enters medieval ground. Canary Wharf shows what happens when global finance enters redeveloped industrial land. Both are modern London, but they do not speak with the same accent. As London became a global financial center, pressure for office space grew. New towers rose in the city and around Canary Wharf. The Gherkin, the walkie-talkie, the cheese grater, and the Shard changed the silhouette. Suddenly, London looked almost futuristic, but only in certain places. And that is the final twist. Even London's skyscrapers are shaped by history. St. Paul's Cathedral still governs the skyline. Protected views and height controls preserve important sightlines toward the dome. Tall buildings cannot simply spread everywhere. They cluster, step back, lean, taper, and negotiate. In London, even a skyscraper is not completely free. It must answer to a cathedral completed more than 3 centuries ago. That is why the modern city skyline has such an unusual shape. It is not a flat wall of towers. It rises in clusters, squeezed by view corridors, heritage constraints, ancient streets, property boundaries, transport nodes, and financial ambition. The skyline is not just a picture of wealth. It is a map of rules. And those rules are still being tested. The approved one undershaft tower, planned between the Gherkin and the Leadenhall building, shows the next phase of the same negotiation. It is designed to add major office space to the city cluster, while also promising public viewing, education, culture, and ground-level public realm. A tower of global finance, now has to present itself as a public destination. That is very London. Ambition does not disappear. It gets translated into planning conditions. So when people say London looks chaotic, they are only half right. London looks chaotic because 500 years are visible at the same time. The River City, the Fire City, the Georgian Estate City, the Victorian Underground City, the Bombed City, the Glass Financial City. All of them are still present. All of them are still legible. All of them are still arguing with one another in brick, stone, concrete, and glass. London is not the story of one style replacing another. It is the story of a city that refused to let any single vision win completely. The medieval lanes survived the fire because ownership was stronger than architectural ambition. The Georgian squares gave London elegance because landowners contracted coherence into existence. The Victorians built a second city underground because the surface had run out of room. The 20th century opened wounds that modernism tried to heal, but never fully closed. And the skyscrapers still bow to a cathedral because, even in a global financial center, history holds planning authority. That is why London feels different from cities built around a single founding idea. Paris projects power through alignment. New York projects energy through the grid. Rome projects permanence through ruins. London projects memory through collision. London does not ask every century to disappear. It stacks them. It negotiates with them. And then it builds the next layer on top. Sometimes the result is awkward. Sometimes a glass tower feels too close to a church. Sometimes a concrete estate sits too bluntly beside a Georgian terrace. Sometimes the old and the new do not harmonize at all. But that friction is the record, not a flaw in the city. Every skyline view in London is a settlement between what someone wanted to build and what was already standing. 500 years of London design did not produce one perfect city. It produced something more unusual, a city that kept changing because it had to, and kept remembering because it could not do otherwise. That is why London still looks like London. And that leads to the perfect next question. If London absorbed 5 centuries of change without surrendering its own identity, what happens when a city makes the opposite decision and chooses to impose one? In the next video, we are looking at why Paris looks so powerful, how one ruler, one engineer, and one extraordinarily deliberate act of urban redesign turned a medieval city into an architecture of authority that the world has been copying ever since. Thank you for watching. More hidden stories are waiting in stone. What should Archmyst uncover next? Tell us below.